Good morning, everyone. My name is MightyStream, and I am going to do your December the 5th Spiritual Principle Day in a meditation. Hope you're doing well this morning. Up early. It's not quite 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm up early because I am I'm hosting an NA International Marathon meeting in 1 hour. So I want to make sure we get this done. December 5th, Uncomplicated Faith. When we find ourselves obsessed with a complication in our lives, we will do well to sharply remind ourselves of all that is going right. That comes from the Just for Today book, meditation book, Making Mountains into Molehills, January 19th. Once we have been in recovery for a while, we discovered that unmanageability can be caused by things other than the use of drugs. Some difficulties we face are the result of factors other than our disease. This can be especially frustrating after we put so much work into gaining freedom from our disease, developing the ability to make and keep plans, to set and achieve goals for ourselves. We were stuck in ruts for so long, and finally, we are going somewhere. And when complications arise, someone cancels on us at the last minute. The bus is late. Money we were counting on doesn't come through on time. External complications are a fact of life, and they sometimes make our lives more difficult to manage. For people who are well versed in unmanageability, our tolerance for complications, not of our own making, can be surprisingly low sometimes. Acceptance and faith often go hand in hand, especially in these moments. One real danger to our practice of faith comes when we obsess over complications. Rather than simply addressing an issue head on, we are prone to begin thinking about it and keep thinking about precisely how much the complication is interfering with our plans. Self-centered obsession is familiar territory for us. What better place for us to go when things aren't going our way? A member shared, I can have 99 things going right for me, but all I can think about is the one thing that isn't. Sharing with other addicts can help us move from obsession back to faith. When our sponsors suggest gratitude lists, it's not about pretending that difficulties or hardships don't exist. It's about getting a better perspective. Taking a more objective look at our lives helps us reconnect with faith. Yes, something is going wrong, but in many other areas, our lives are going better than we ever imagined could have. Our lives, are going better than we ever could have managed on our own. Like that. We will be okay. In fact, we already are. When something goes wrong, I don't have to pretend that I'm happy about it. I do, however, need to make sure I'm not giving it more attention than it deserves, especially when compared to all that's going right. Beautiful meditation. Let's take a moment of silence, followed by the we version of Serenity Prayer. Thank you. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today, please and thank you. I feel like I really want to do the third step prayer too. So let me do that with you, okay? God, take my will in my life. Guide me in recovery. Show me how to live. Okay. So we're talking about uncomplicated faith. We're talking about being able to properly add value in the right place, right? If an accountant comes along and they say, okay, MightyStream, how much money do you have? I have $10,000. Well, what are your expenses? Well, my expenses are, and I start to list off my expenses. And let's say, just for the sake of fluency, I tell my accountant that I spend $1,000 on groceries a month. And my accountant reads or hears that wrong. They make it look like I have an income of an extra $1,000 per month for groceries, an outside source. Okay. Maybe, I don't know what it could be, but maybe that happens. So I have 10,000 and then there's added another 1,000. So it looks like I have $11,000. But in actuality, I've said there is an expense, not a credit, right? There's a liability of $1,000, not an asset of $1,000. But the accountant has come along. They would never make this mistake. Just for the story purpose, right? They come along and make it look like it's an asset. So it looks like I have 11,000 instead of 10. And if you took 1,000 away from 10, I would have 9. But now, not only does it not reflect the true amount of 9,000 being left to use, right? It actually looks like I have 11,000 and the expense of 1,000 hasn't even been credited, right? Taken away from that. So instead of it looking like 9,000, it looks like 11,000 because the 1,000 has never been deducted. It was added. Do you see how much of a difference that is? It's not just $1,000 because it was never deducted properly. It is actually 2,000, right? And so it looks like I have 2,000 more than I actually do. But when I go to look at it, not only was an extra 1,000 added in, but the food was never deducted. The expense was never deducted. This is faulty accounting and horrible at the very least. The proper value hasn't been added or deducted. In a spiritual sense, what does that mean? That means that when I'm going through troublesome times, I'm not accounting for all of the beautiful times that I've experienced. And for me, they have far outweighed the horrible times. So at the end of the day, when I'm accounting for my day, I'm doing my inventory, it looks like, right? It looks worse because I'm assigning value the wrong way to certain areas. My gratitude list has far more value than the difficulties in my life that I experience, right? The ratio is like 5-1, right? My gratitude list is 5 times greater than any list of difficulties I could ever come up with. But because I'm assigning the wrong value to the difficulties, they look like they're outweighing the beauty in my life. What helps a person to correct that? Well, it's just like the disease of addiction, actively using. I admit that I have a problem with the value that I'm assigning to these areas in my life. I admit that I have a problem with having an attitude of gratitude. I admit that I have a problem with having faith instead of fear. That I give fear far more weight than I actually give faith. I start correcting it by admitting that I have had an issue assigning value or having the right perspective of my life. When I admit that I've made a mistake in an area, now I've opened the door for correction to come, right? I said, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. The teacher happens to be the program of Narcotics Anonymous, my sponsor, my network, other people that I engage in. But if I don't ever come to the true sum total of who I am and how I've operated, and that it's been faulty accounting, if I don't ever come to that understanding that this one member shared, I can have 99 things go right for me, but all I can do is focus on that one thing that isn't. If I don't come to the understanding and admit honestly that the way that I've attributed value in my life has been wrong, it needs to be corrected, needs to be adjusted. We call it a personality change. If I don't admit that, the help is never going to become evident to me. It will always just be someone running their mouth telling me that I'm doing a lot better than I actually feel. When I can be honest about where I'm at, then I can start to grow into change. And that takes work. It takes practice, but you never get there by not acknowledging it. We have to acknowledge it. Family, I would love to go on and on and on about positive cognitive restructuring, right? It's basically just changing the way that we think to be more positive than negative. And in order to do it, we have to acknowledge it. That in itself is a step of faith. However small, it is enough to build on. Believing that you have a God of your understanding that cares for you. Accepting that your assignment value in your life has been obscured, darkened, right? Dark, off. You know, in accounting, when you're in the negative, it's in the red, right? And when I used to be taught accounting, you know, anything in the red was actually put in parentheses to show that it was a negative amount, right? Get that part figured out. And once you start recognizing what you're doing and making up in your mind, you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore. Even if the check don't come when it's supposed to come, I know that I'm not starving and I'm not hungry and have a roof over my head. Even if I'm walking to work, I know that I got legs to walk. There's some people that don't have legs, right? See what I'm saying? My name is MightyStream. I've enjoyed talking to you today. I could talk forever on this one. I hope that you have a beautiful day on purpose.